Thanks a lot, Dave, for that and telling everyone the wonderful community aspect of WeWork. It's really a great thing to see. When I was in New York City, I started to see the rise of a lot of these spaces back in 2009, 2010, and it was at the very first WeWork over on Grand Street. Definitely a very different environment, and it's really great to see how it's grown just tremendously over the past, really past 5 short years. So my name's Marc Birch. Many of you probably gotten my emails or seen my face somewhere online. So I thank you just for coming out this evening. When I started this group, I believe August of last year, did it in New York City, and the idea was I started working with a lot of companies, a lot of early stage startups, and came across the same questions over and over again. How do I set up sales teams? How do I hire? What does the sales process look like? What type of sales tools should I be using? And I figured I seem to be this conduit for a lot of these questions. How about if I get a whole bunch of smart people in sales and we can all answer all of these questions together? And so that was the idea of doing an enterprise sales meetup. It was a small little conference room in the middle of summer. I didn't think I'd get 20 people. Got considerably more, and over the past year, we've grown from just a few stalwart B2B salespeople to over 2,000 people in our New York City community. And over that time, a lot of folks in other cities said, why don't you do it in our city? And I heard a lot of loudest voices in Boston. So this is our first attempt at doing and launching a B2B sales community right here where we can all get together, meet every month, network, share ideas, learn from each other, learn from our peers, and figure out what are the things that work well in sales, what are the things that don't work well in sales. And to hear from the mouths of actual sales operators who are doing this day in and day out, probably figured out a few things and are very willing and gracious enough to share some of the things that they've learned over time. Before I kick things off with our very special guest speaker, Eric, I wanted to thank a few folks. Most importantly, WeWork for being generous with providing the space for us for these events. Spiro Technologies, where's my Spiro crew? All right, would you just want to come up here just for give like a few blurbs about what Spiro's doing?
Hi, I'm Brooke Wenrick. I'm here from Spiro. I'm sure you've seen us kind of hanging out over the table. We're a personal sales app that aims to help you better manage your deals and make more money. We're currently in private beta, but would love to talk to any and all of you, give you some more information about what we're doing, hopefully get you signed up after the meeting. But we're excited to be here and hope that you like the app, and I'm sure it's going to be a great conversation.
Thanks, Brooke. And for one last thing is, the success of this meetup is it's all dependent on all of us. It's not just an event. I really do believe it's a community, and that's how it's worked. People have found mentors, have gotten questions to a lot of their sales, or answers to a lot of their sales questions, and have found deals, have found jobs, have found talent, and it really does work great as a community. So when we do our next event, October 13th, Tuesday, really great topic on selling before marketing. Tell one person that you know in sales to sign up and join our event next month. And it's really through word of mouth that the group really truly becomes that type of dynamic community where we're all helping each other out and helping each other to be masters of the sales game. Because that's ultimately why we're here at these types of events, is to sharpen our sales skills and to be a lot better at what we're doing day in and day out. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Eric to come up here and we're going to get kicked off. Thanks, Mark. Round of applause. Now, if we fall off any of these stools during don't worry.
Literally knocked me off the perch.
Well, hi there, Mr. Poley. Nice to meet you. Well, I'm going to give the floor up to you because you were gracious enough to be here tonight and to share some of what you've learned over the course of 20
It's been 20 plus years.
20 plus years. I won't get into the exact
I think
specifics,
you're dating me right off.
yeah, sure. But I'd like to make my guests comfortable. But yeah, I guess to kick off things off, why don't you tell everyone about what you've done over the past sales career, a little bit about yourself, and what you're doing now.
I'd say the quick of it is, I've been fortunate to be the first salesperson in from an enterprise standpoint now at 5 startups.
Can you use the mic, please?
Oh, you want bit better?
Yes.
Yeah, I've been fortunate to be the first enterprise salesperson in with 5 companies in a row. And what that's given me is a good perspective, being in the early days, the trenches of actually growing out a sales organization. First, of course, as an individual contributor, I was really fortunate to be a part of some truly world-class teams, to the point where you can recognize in the moment that that was something very special, including Salesforce.com. Was the first person hired by Marc Benioff to kick off the enterprise practice at Salesforce back in 2002. And the fact is that I got a bit lucky. In retrospect, I've tried to model that out in terms of how people can hire and grow their careers. But I call it the hang-around factor. And I was fortunate to have some good success at a company called Bow Street, based up in New Hampshire. And one of the lead executives at Bow Street worked with Marc Benioff at Oracle. And it happened to be about a couple months after a large deal was closed that I had with Cisco that helped this executive get her business development deal with Accenture. She was at dinner with Marc, and Marc said, yeah, I think, which sounds ridiculous now in 2015, Marc said, yeah, I think this Salesforce.com thing I'm doing will work in big enterprises. I'm ready to hire. I first got to go test the waters. So ultimately, I was really Marc Benioff's guinea pig. So Kristen Brown was gracious and said, I've got to talk to this guy Eric I'm working with. And certainly I don't believe for a moment I was the most qualified person in the United States to get that first job in at Salesforce. Actually, give me 3 more of these and I'll say, yes, I was. But I was lucky enough to have the connection in. And so I was the first employee, not based in San Francisco, at Salesforce.com, based here in Boston. So as you can imagine, I had to be awfully choosy about who I was inviting along the sales call, since it was a 6,000-mile round trip for anybody to join me in person. But it was a really good experience, and I would say that the biggest thing there is not only the market and the technology, of course, but is the lesson learned for me is the number one most important thing is go get hired by the most accomplished, successful, intellectually bright, and high integrity individuals you can find, and most of the time stuff works itself out. So it was a big launching point in my career, and I've tried to take some of those best practices in my subsequent gigs, including Vericode here in Boston, funded by Atlas and Matrix in the early days. I was a Poley 11 as their VP of Sales pre-beta. I know we have a bunch of salespeople here, which is always a little nerve-wracking going into a gig as a sales executive when there's not actually a commercial product. Steve Rogie in the back, blue shirt. That's where Steve and I met. He was the #1 performer there for many years. So nice to have you, Steve. He's going to heckle me, of course.
Yeah, let him have it. It's
coming.
okay.
I know it's coming.
I came here for the food.
And then fast forward to today. I'm with a place called JW Player. It's the largest online video platform in the world. Right now, the 3 big ecosystems for online video are Facebook, YouTube, and JW Player. Anybody actually heard of JW Player out there? A show of hands? Oh, that's about 5 more than I was expecting. Because we're kind of behind the scenes. We're on 3 million websites. Last month, we streamed 18 billion videos to 1.2 billion unique people in 193 countries. So by far the biggest ecosystem of video, but we're used for video on all the sites that you use. So if you go to ESPN.com, if you go to Washington Post, if you watch a TED Talk at TED.com, and 2.5 million other sites, that's actually JW Player running that video. And what we help our clients do is they have this brilliant content to spread ideas and entertainment and education around the world. All they want to know is when somebody hits play from an iPhone or a tablet or a PC, regardless of internet connection, it's a world-class experience. And of course, if you're having a great experience, they want to throw an ad or 2 in there. We can do that too. All those things we skip after 4 seconds. So that's what we're doing today, based in New York City, and in very clear terms, all those best practices, and hopefully we'll get into some of those tonight, that I learned over the years, starting way back in the Bow Street days, especially Salesforce. I try to carry forward. I guess the one punchline I'll give you, the hang-around factor is I found my way to JW Player because of our president, Chris Mall, who joined as JW's president just about 2 years ago, exactly. And when he hears the story that I started the enterprise practice at Salesforce, he says, "Oh, Eric, that's really interesting. Didn't I join about 8 weeks later as your boss?" Yes. So this is a guy that I worked for back at Salesforce that I'm working for again. So we have a nice long history together.
Great. And to that point, I guess the topic that we want to really dive into is this idea of building enterprise sales teams. And you've done it at a very early stage with a lot of these companies, particularly starting with Salesforce, being the very first enterprise sales rep, and trying to think about how do I build a repeatable process and team. And so you've probably learned a few things over the course of that time. We've had a few conversations subsequently, and one of the things that kind of comes up is this term excellence. You bring it up a lot. So how do you kind of put a framework around that? And one of the things we talked about is these 3 tiers of excellence in the sales organization. So maybe you can dive into what you mean by 1, excellence,
Yeah, sure.
and 2, what does this 3 tiers of a sales organization look like?
Great. Yeah, I guess one of the things that I've carried forth over the multiple companies, and Steve's going to recognize some of the terminology, is, and I say this all the time, about if I've had any measure of success, it's certainly not because of intellectual brilliance. I find scar tissue is a good substitute for intellect oftentimes, so I'm trying to carry that forward. And I have a framework that's worked really successfully for me as a rep, as an individual to determine how am I tracking toward excellence. And this is not a platitude, there's definitions of excellence, which is the first piece. What is excellence from a definition perspective? And the 3 sort of bases that Marc referred to. The first is a true indicator of success. What is that definition for your sales team? And that can be as simple as, are we accomplishing our goals at or above our quota as a team or as individuals or not? It's very binary. There can be measures of success in terms of performance, this first category, on pipeline coverage. We know that we need 2.5x pipeline versus our goal. There's measures of success in terms of forecast accuracy. And in how I define it with my team, this is a very discrete, measurable thing. World-class forecast accuracy is 95% of the beginning of the month forecast, full stop, plus or minus 5%. So there's definitions from a performance standpoint. But what I think is very important is recognizing those are true indicators of success. The other 2 bases are more leading indicators of success that I put across my team. And the first one is knowledge and skills. Do we have definitions of what knowledge and skills are necessary to truly be world class? And my experience is, in having the privilege of working with the players, they want that clarity, they want the bar to be set high, and we owe them as managers very good clarity as to what definition means from a skill set standpoint. And how I articulate it to my team, and I know there's multiple ways to be successful, but what works for me over the years is to keep things relatively simple. When I talk about knowledge, it's a few things. We have a mantra. I actually have it up on my Hoopla screen on my team. The first is be knowledgeable at the point of sale. Second, be at the point of sale. And 3 is be sales strong. And the first one, be knowledgeable at the point of sale. This means, are we truly world class? Not just knowing our own product to be better, but do we know our own product? Do we know our competition? Do we know what the market trends are? Do we know the clients that we've already conducted business with, and the vignettes and the stories and the value propositions? Do you know what to demo? Do you know how to pitch? As you can imagine, it's a relatively wide aperture of what defines world-class knowledge and skills. But I won't be coy about this. When I build my teams in JW Player, I'm really proud of the folks I have. I ask each person to take a responsibility to not only lean on the world-class technology that we have, and we do, we have the best technology on the planet, but I say, guys, if we just lean on that solution set, and we are mediocre, we're kind of a B team coasting along, guess what? We're going to sell deals, this technology speaks for itself, it's got great credibility, and we'll all make a few bones, we'll have an exit a couple of years from now, and then shame on us that we squandered what should have been a very special, magical window of our careers that we should be looking back at and have people talk about for the next 20 years. So I said, let's all agree that if we're going to be part of this team, we will be truly world class. We should lead every prospect call, every interaction with our client looking like a different species compared to the guy that's competing against us walking in to do his demo an hour later. And that takes people that are really focused on building the craft with discipline and rigor. And so what I try to do is bring structure to that knowledge and point of sale, and then let very ambitious, smart people go chase it. So knowledge at the point of sale. The second one, be at the point of sale. This is a shorter commentary. Let's just make sure that we're having these great conversations with people that have juice, the people that actually have influence, budget, decision-making authority with the organizations that we're dealing. So I think I can see there's definitely some people that are veterans here. We've all seen that rep come off a discovery call. Pump, that was great, they love us, this was fantastic, it was a 90-minute meeting, and then you realize that you just spent 90 minutes with somebody that's like 6 levels removed, like Kevin Bacon's not even related to that decision process.
It was a great conversation with the product manager.
Yeah.
It was really in depth. I think they can really move this.
Yeah, so be at the point of sale. Let's make sure we're in the juice. And then the third one is be sales strong. And this is about sales process. This is about not just having a nose for a deal and having a high EQ and saying, I kind of feel like things are going well. And we've all seen that there are some people that are naturally, organically very good, but they don't have consistent behavior. So what is the discipline and rigor, to use those 2 words again, that represents a world-class sales process? And we work a lot on that in terms of gates between stages. What do you have to see that is clear and measurable and objective before you move from one sales stage to the next? If we do that day in and day out with very good clarity in a team selling environment, that spikes up everything: close rates, forecast accuracy, knowledge of why we're winning deals. It has a ripple effect across the whole team. So that's really important in terms of those 3 bases. It's performance, skills, and then the third base is activity. So you can have all the great skills in the world, but if you're not marrying that to what is defined as world-class activity to be successful, then you're never going to move the needle. So I think there should be a structure and a discipline also to what represents high leverage activities, the amount of those that are expected on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And very importantly, I want to give my reps the ability to self-manage these things. This is not about me looking at Salesforce.com dashboards, which I do, and saying, hey, Steve, we have done a lot of presentations this week, or your pipeline's not building. I want to give that visibility to the reps so they can self-manage with the definitions of excellence that are clear and objective, and allow them to move the needle. Of course, I need to be the safety net if I see things awry. So the punchline to all that, Mark, is, and thanks for indulging me, folks. I know I was a little bit long-winded, but those 3 bases, performance, knowledge, and activity, I want certainly all 3 at any given time, but at a minimum, I need 2 out of 3. I need 2 out of 3. So as you can imagine, so I've doubled my team since April of this year. So for the new reps, they're not going to have points on the board. The scoreboard isn't there yet. So by definition, performance in terms of bookings is not there. So I have to look at the other 2. Are they building the right skills? Do they have the right knowledge acquisition? And do they have the hustle, the right types of activities, and the right number? And I can tell very easily, looking at those 2 bases, whether or not the scoreboard is going to take care of itself. Because it does. If you really focus on those 2 buckets, you don't need to worry about the scoreboard. It will happen.
Yeah, and it's interesting you pointed out. When we think about the whole package of performance, skills, when we talk about activity, having that baseline of just, we're going to be excellent. We're going to do as much as we can to be excellent at all 3. But I think you'd agree with anything. It's great to talk about that, but at the same time, if you don't measure it, as they say, it never happened.
Yep.
So what are you doing on a regular basis to make sure that folks are excellent across each one of those 3 bases?
Sure.
That they're excellent when they're out there getting their number, bringing in the deals around performance. What are they doing around being excellent in knowledge and skills acquisition, being great at the point of sale and sales strong, as you point out. And third, about activity, being excellent with having the right type of activity, making sure they're always moving forward in doing things they need to do. And with that type of rigor and discipline you're talking about, how are you measuring all that?
Sure. Mark obviously brings up a great point. Platitudes are great. Let's define excellence, everybody rah-rah, then how do you really know if people are meeting the mark? So I think it's really important to be data-driven, be objective in really not only defining what that is, but then measuring if people are living up to that. And my experience is A players, they love a little healthy competition. They all want to be at the top of the leaderboard. So let's use that as an objective measurement and a way to self-motivate. So I'll give you an example. So I mentioned pitching. We just had a brand new pitch deck crafted based on new product offerings, new customer wins, new value propositions put out to the team. Well, this is not something we just send out to the team and say, hey guys, here's a new pitch deck, go run with this. It's deeper than that. I actually use is anybody actually here from Inside Square, by chance? No? Because I've heard they use the same sort of philosophy, but I call it white hat, black hat. Does that ring a bell with you, Marc, by chance? So I bring everybody into the entire sales team, including the folks that are remote, and on the dot, they don't know who's going to present. I choose one person to present, say, Larry, you're up. And I choose one rep, your white hat, another rep, your black hat. The white hat rep, their whole mission is to write things down during the presentation that are exemplary. Things that are not just standard, but that was good. Let's talk about that and maybe replicate that across the team. The black hat, whole mission, tear this thing apart in terms of things that didn't work. Was there a fun fact that was wrong? That the reason you just gave a story about how we won Washington Post, but you mentioned the wrong value propositions, or you forgot to mention this key new product capability. So let's give constructive feedback about what was south of neutral. Now the rest of the team, of course, is looking at this, but I have two designated people to give feedback at the end, and of course, I have to give my 2 cents as well. But I find is, if you do this in a round robin aspect, let everybody just impromptu get up on stage in front of their peers and do it. By the way, including myself, one of the things that I'm really keen, especially in the early stage gauge when you're building the sales offense, I think it's really important to lead by example, right? To have integrity to my push for my reps, to do the things that I am defining as excellent. I better be right there in the pool swimming with them, not on the edge asking them to swim harder. So when we pull the names out of the hats, my name's in there too. And actually, I saw a couple of my new reps were surprised that actually my name got chosen a week and a half ago. And I got up and I could tell by the kind of surprised look, like, oh, Eric's going. Yeah, I'm getting certified too. Who's white hat, black hat? So
That's good, because a lot of organizations won't, I think it comes down to sales leadership, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of sales leaders, you get to a point where you're more about managing, and you're not necessarily there about leading by example, to your point. And so a lot of those things about being out in the field or being part of certification doesn't generally happen.
That's right.
It's great to hear that you're actually doing that actively, JW Player.
that's right. So, and that's really the net of this. It's certifying through objective means. So we have this sort of group exercise, and then they move on to presenting in front of myself and the VP of Direct Sales, Inside Sales reports to me. We have a scorecard that's objective and repeatable. They have to get at least an 8 out of 10 measurement on that to move on to the next level. They must certify in front of our president and CEO. And then we have a 2-week window where at any point in time during the day in the office, as long as they're not on calls, the rest of the executive staff, including, so as you may recall, with JW Player, JW are the initials for Jerome Wearing, the founder of the firm. Anybody from product, engineering, senior executive staff would just come up and say, I'll go to Larry again. Fabricated Larry. Just tap Larry on the shoulder, Larry, come, present to me. That's the third certification process at any time during the course of that 2 weeks. And it keeps people on their toes. So we do the same thing with pitching, demoing, product training, having discrete certification processes is really important. So that's on the skill side. Activity side is a little simple. We define what is excellent in terms of number of presentations per week, pipeline that's being built, number of dials. I don't want my team to be a boiler room, but there are some certain drills, certain things that we know represent world-class activity that if you're not doing, you're not leveraging your time in the proper manner. It's the equivalent of, I use a silly sports analogy, if you want to be an all-pro wide receiver, you can't just go off and do the things that are fun, catching balls all day. If you look back at your week and you didn't hit the gym 3 times, you're probably not doing the right things that should be all-pro. So I try to make those definitions out there, let them self-manage on their dashboards, and then this is where I offer some healthy competition. Every Friday morning, it's going to happen tomorrow at 8 a.m. It's not about the numbers tomorrow in terms of forecast or revenue. Tomorrow, we get up at 8 a.m., my entire team will be in New York. I'll be doing this from my bed in Boston, depending how much, depending if I finish this or not. And we're going to go over the dashboards, live in real time with the entire team, in terms of who is top of the leaderboard in terms of presentations, pipeline build, number of dials, talk time. We look at that on a weekly basis, and there's not an A player I've ever met that wants to be in the lower quadrant of that group exercise on a Friday morning. So a little healthy competition is a good thing.
Maybe to that point, give like maybe a few examples for folks of things that are important in terms of those dashboards. I mean, what are you actually looking for from an activity standpoint? How are you actually monitoring performance activity? Obviously, it's, yeah, you want to see deals. What exactly are you specifically looking at?
Yeah, so I just mentioned a couple of those. So I don't try to over-engineer it. For where my team was before I arrived 15 months ago, I try to do incremental improvements. You throw too much at one time and the behavior changes 180 degrees. I don't think it's very productive. So I've been implementing newer things. So one of the things, an example, besides, those are real ones that I gave, by the way, we have dashboards. Each individual can see the number of hours I talked on the phone this week or connected to the phone systems. I can see how much new pipeline I personally generated, not from inbounds, not from marketing, not from any other source, but my personal efforts to outbound my name accounts. We measure that. I look at the number of presentations per week. And we have a very low bar, 6. You do 6 presentations a week. Top guys are doing much more. But at a minimum, guys, if you're not doing at least one presentation plus a bonus on a daily basis, that should be a red flag. What's going on here? So those things are automated and viewed anytime the rep wants to, so they can make sure they show up to Friday morning. This is not a black box. They're managing their own world. I'd say the one other thing that I just implemented, I've been waiting to do this for the right time, and it is now the right time, now that I've doubled the team. Every single Monday, we have a mandate that everybody gets up and takes some cerebral time before they do their first call. What is your goal for this week? What are your goals? It could be 1 or 2. What are your goals for this week? And then relatedly, what are your high leverage activities you are doing today to make sure you're starting off in good footing to accomplish that goal by Friday? Again, lead by example. I take the 5 a.m. Acela train down every Monday morning from Boston to New York. Everybody gets up, because I usually keep people up since I'm on my computer at 5, and I share with the entire team, here are my goals. I may have to call some sensitive HR things out, but say, guys, I'm not asking you to do anything I don't do myself. I'm not holding you to a different standard than hold myself. Here's my weekly goals, and then relatedly, right below that, here are my high leverage activities related to those goals today that I need to accomplish. I want to see yours by the time I get to the office at 9 o'clock. Let's review those. And then on Friday morning, the second part of tomorrow's call, we purposely do it in the morning and say, guys, how'd you do in your goals this week? They're all documented. We actually have this in a shared doc. And if there's anything that they need help on from the extended team, executive push, product, on that final day of the week, if we haven't already been alerted, we say, great, we're going to help you get past that mark that you set for yourself on Monday before the end of the day today.
Now, I like the idea that you've created a goal system within your organization and holding people accountable. I think it's so vastly critical because we can get too deep into, and how many people have this happen? They just get absorbed in their dashboards and their reports, and they look at these reports and they make their decisions, but then afterwards there's no follow-up. Right? So what are you doing? Maybe you can give some specific examples of ways that you're encouraging this culture of excellence and doing this idea of continuous coaching and making sure that people are always on their game. Obviously, you have a lot of A players, but sometimes it's useful, I think, always, even with A players, to provide that coaching, provide some assistance.
I'll give you one, I hope, relevant example. The first 24 hours of any new selling month. So I'll give you the example that just happened. We closed August. It was supposed to be a lull for us. It ended up being the second best bookings month in the history of the firm. Really great performance. Coming into September, before the end of the day, but we actually took a day and a half, so before the end of September 2nd, Rob, I mentioned before, my VP of Direct Sales and myself, we split up the team, and we had one-on-ones with every single rep. We do this every single month before the first 2 days are out. And we asked them to self-assess how they did the previous month on all 3 of those bases we mentioned previously. Right? So it's performance, great, how'd you do against your goal, how'd you do against your forecast, accuracy, let's make sure that we know where we actually ended up, and then give a self-assessment on your skills, on your activity level, and then come to that assessment with a suggestion for yourself, before I mention anything, of what the one thing you're going to do in the month of September to get closer toward excellence, to close that delta down. And it's got to be a stated goal, and it has to be measurable in terms of how you're going to measure success between September 1st and the 30th. And this allows, again, self-management. I want folks to feel like they're controlling their own destiny. They are, a large part. Certainly I did my assessment as well. And we tracked it. On the 15th, and I actually did 3 of them today, a little bit late. Then I set up my follow-ups. halfway through the month and say, great, let's see how we're doing tracking toward the specific goals that you put out for yourself. And these goals are all over, right? It's between skills and activities. I have a couple of my new reps in, man, I'm not great at crafting what we call a differentiated vision match. I need more help on how to really knock out my discovery calls and find differentiation before I move to the compete stage. So I'm going to go get on 10, this is a real goal, I want 10 discovery calls with my peers, the veterans, the guys at the top of the leaderboard, and then Eric, I want you to do role playing with me on 2 separate occasions before the end of the month. Great. So today, I had a meeting with one of my reps, asked her, how are we tracking toward the goal? She's exactly halfway done her discovery calls. We just put something on the calendar for my personal assessment at the end of the month. Other folks, a little bit later outbound, like, man, you know what? I had a good month last month, but it's clear that I did not create enough of my own pipeline. My goal this month is to create 10 new self-generated opportunities, not referrals, not upgrades, brand new logos. I put my shoulder into this. Great, let's see how you're tracking. So my experience is when people really are diligent, taking some cerebral time to see how can I make myself one step closer to truly being world-class, month in, month out, just make this a behavior, really great things happen.
Sure. We talked a lot about the structure, a little bit about the process. But obviously, none of that really comes into fruition if you don't have the people. And we talked about a lot of some of the philosophy that we have around hiring for sales reps. Maybe can you share some of the things that you've done just in terms of building that sales team, what you look for in candidates, what do you put them through, how you figure out, how you determine who's going to be a successful enterprise sales rep on your team?
Yeah, I spent a lot of time recruiting. And so my experience is I look at things in this way. When I'm hiring a rep, and by the way, I have reps that span all stages of their career. I have a transactional model. We close about 150 new enterprise accounts every month. So it's a big volume. And those go from $1,200 per year subscription deals, literally $100 a month, to we just closed a worldwide deal with Disney and Vice Media at the end of August. But now we're talking about $1 million plus transactions and everything in between. What I'm trying to honor is the ability for me to find A players that are either already established A players on the other end, at the top end of that spectrum, but I also need to find burgeoning A players in the making. So I have 2 different hiring philosophies on those both. But I'd say that generally speaking, if it's somebody that is going to be in that mid-market or above, I look at have something called PIL. That's position, industry, level. Have they played this position before? Have they been in this industry? And have they done this level of activity before or responsibility? So if I'm hiring a director of sales, I'm not going to go after a senior account executive because they don't have proven history of doing that successfully. And if you're an A-plus gig, going after an A-plus candidate, it really should be a lateral move, in my experience. It's the B teams, frankly, that need to offer the big raise, the big promotion, something very unique in order to get an A player attracted to their team. A gig and A player is usually a lateral move, and I look for that sort of pill matching. The other thing I look at very carefully is I look for folks with diversity and stability. So when I look at somebody that I'm trying to hire that is going to be mid to senior, I'd love to see, say somebody who's about 30 years old, I'd love to see 2 gigs. 4 years there, 4 years there, on average. And no points off if there's something a little wonky, but then they show they have stability in the next gig. But ideally, I'd love to see 2 4-year gigs. They can be small company, both A+, or it could be big company, small company, both A+. For example, you talked about the ADP rep. If I see somebody that was 3 years, 4 years out of college at ADP, and then they went to a top-tier startup like Spiro, for instance, I would like that, right? Because they'll say, wait a minute, I know sales training is fantastic at ADP. If they made it through the hiring rigor, the training rigor of ADP, and they have those sort of numbers that are objective, that's a high probability bet. And they went to a small startup. So I look at those sorts of things as well. The third piece, so it's PIL, diversity and stability, and then the third piece goes back to what I mentioned before, the hang-around factor. Once folks are over, I would say the 30 mark, and they're no longer potential A players, they should have a body of work proving that they are A players. My experience